First of all, I would like to thank our respectable speaker for his time and willingness to share his knowledge and experience with us this afternoon. So a very brief but yet very impressive background of our speaker, Dash, Dhakshinamoorthy. So welcome, Dash.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So allow me to share a brief introduction of yourself. So Dash is a well-known figure in a startup ecosystem in Malaysia and has been in the system for more than 2 decades. So he's an alumnus of the Edinburgh Business School, Cambridge University. He did a postgraduate diploma in entrepreneurship and also MBA in Edinburgh Business School. So he's a recipient of the US State Department's prestigious IVLP Fellowship on Entrepreneurship. So Dash is a serial entrepreneur, angel investors, and entrepreneur evangelist. He's the founder of Startup Malaysia, which focuses on the building entrepreneurial self-efficacy in people, and co-founded Midlife Enterpriser. So I've went through the websites of Midlife Enterpriser, a very interesting program, a very good entrepreneurship school that targeted the midlifer. Okay, so he Dash currently mentors early stage entrepreneurs, both locally and abroad, and facilitates many programs on building ventures and also design thinking. So without further delay, let's welcome Dash. So over to you, Dash.
Thank you very much, Prof, and to Prof Hadi for reaching out. I'm so delighted to speak at the UITM students. I want to keep the presentation very, very interactive. Don't want no formalities, just ask any questions at the end of it. My passion in life is basically to help young people. Young also means someone in their 70s or 80s. It doesn't mean just young people, to become venturesome, to do something that can actually impact many people. Essentially, that's basically my passion. Now I'll just share some slides. Problem is an opportunity. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. So that's the mindset of being entrepreneurial to start with. I took this photograph in Stanford University inside the STVP. And it actually talks everything about how you see the world. So you can either see the world as too much of problems, or you can see the world as opportunity rich. So it's the way of being entrepreneurial is to see the world as opportunity rich. Every problem is an opportunity. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. And how does one become entrepreneurial? Is entrepreneurial something that you need to be born? Or is entrepreneurship something that you are already naturally have it inside you? Do you need to follow somebody, or do you need to look within yourself to see how you can tap that potential that's inside, that's already within you? So these are things that we want to answer today. And what does it mean to be entrepreneurial today in this world compared to before? Okay. So I call this becoming a venturer. Being entrepreneurial is becoming like a venturer. I don't like to say becoming entrepreneurial most of the time, because entrepreneurial has a connotation that you only need to start companies. We believe now that everybody should be entrepreneurial, though not everybody will start companies. So what does that mean? Okay. Yes, like Prof. Ali was saying just now, I've been an entrepreneur for 3 decades. I studied accountancy. I found out accountancy was not my line. I went to finish that off. Then went to do my MBA, and then went to Cambridge School. Went postgraduate. Did 3 ventures. Sold 2 of them. I brought the global. I started doing a lot with the Malaysian startup ecosystem, because I really wanted to make sure a lot of people, because when I started my businesses, I didn't know where to go, who to ask, what to do. This is way back in 1994. Where are the mentors? That time you need to write business plan and all that kind of things. But I know I just went ahead and started my businesses. I didn't have the money, but I know I just started small and then, slowly grew. But I really wanted a lot of the young people to become entrepreneurial. So I started working on bringing great programs like the Global Entrepreneurship Week to Malaysia in year 2008, and almost activated the startup ecosystem by bringing Startup Weekend, Stanford Innovation Challenge, and many, many different programs. And then in 2011, I said, I looked at all our young entrepreneurs and I said, a lot of them think very small. They say, okay, I'm not sure whether I should be entrepreneur or not. So I did this big program with MDEC, and brought Silicon Valley comes to Malaysia, where we brought 17 entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley. They came and spoke to 1,000 of our startups, young people. And they basically told them that everyone can have ideas, everyone can think and build ventures. And that really built the confidence in the young people. And then we did another program called Global Startup Youth. That program, basically, I started that in the one in 2013. I brought 500 young startups or people who were from 100 countries. Then I started running the Founder Institute in Australia. The Founder Institute is a Silicon Valley accelerator program, and more. And then I'm also the judge for the MIT's Under 40 Innovators Awards. And today, Creative Business Cup, tonight at 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'm sitting with a global jury to judge a global entrepreneurship, a creative challenge. I was the first Malaysian probably to have met President Obama in 2010. I was invited for the first presidential summit in 2010. Subsequently, I was also invited for other summits. I was there as the only Malaysian when Obama launched his foundation, the Obama Foundation, was given the fellowship. So basically that's a little bit. I'm a long distance runner and a long distance swimmer. So that's the activity I enjoy doing. So whatever you're going to see here is about what you see. I mean, they're acknowledging some people whose ideas I have shared with you, who I'm going to share with you here. So what is being entrepreneurial? Entrepreneurial is a very, very much a human trait. Okay, it's nothing outside. It's within you. Okay, it is about acting, failing, learning, and acting again. Look at the children. Look at the child. You have already done this before. You got up and walked. You fell down and you started walking again, and you did. So it's in the human DNA. Okay, being entrepreneurial is in the human DNA. And you'll be wondering, what is this guy talking about? Let me take you to the next one. You see, look at our history. The animal attacked us, and we said, oh, I failed here. I now need to go back and make innovation. I need to make tools, and then come back, and I'm already become the king of the jungle, eating and whatever. So human beings have always been entrepreneurial. They've always acted. They've always created something. And all our institutions before were created, the pyramids, all these things were created by people being entrepreneurial. That means people didn't had a vision, and they built stuff using resources, using people that they have. But what happened was, in 1776, when the economist Adam Smith wrote about economy and gave a shape to economy, and then they discovered that there has to be a person who moves the resources together, and this person should be given a name. And a guy called Richard Cantillon gave the name and said, okay, he's an undertaker, someone who undertakes, and that word called, the French word, became entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is a French word which means someone who undertakes. So entrepreneur and entrepreneurship, there are no specific definition. The definition keeps moving. As the age keeps moving, the definition of entrepreneurship keeps moving. At that time, the entrepreneur was someone who put two and two together, and then subsequently the change happened with entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship education, the ones that are being taught in universities. So everyone started teaching entrepreneurship. So there are three types of education. One is about entrepreneurship. apakah keusahawanan and the history of entrepreneurship and all that people talk about. And then there is another one, how to become an entrepreneur. How to become an entrepreneur. And the third one is to become entrepreneurial. Okay, so what happened is about entrepreneurship, about all the ciri-ciri keusahawanan and all those things are not relevant. So, but what people thought was, if I teach you to start a company, if I teach you to start a venture, you will automatically become entrepreneurial. That is a misconception. It's not necessarily that you teach someone to start a venture, they become entrepreneurial. But what they found out was you get people to become entrepreneurial and they have a high chance of them starting a company or starting a venture or starting anything. So what are the things to teach people to become entrepreneurial? How do you teach someone to become entrepreneurial? Is the question. So one of them, Simon Bridge, so said, entrepreneurship is becoming entrepreneurial. There are about 6 different skills. That is what I showed you just now: act, fail, learn, and learn again. And the other one is perspective, looking at the world from different parts, problem solving, persuasive, leveraging on social capital. And the last one is an appetite for uncertainty. So they found that even a pirate has an entrepreneurship skill. So MIT said you basically bring that zest of a pirate and combine it with the discipline of a Navy SEAL. But we'll discuss all this in detail later. Okay. So that's what the whole thing is about. So a little bit of history. A little bit of history. Everyone okay? Is there any questions, or shall I carry on? So a bit of history about human progress and innovation. Looking at human history of innovation over time, if you look at it, it's a little bit of trajectory. It is slowly, it's been very gradual all these years, right? It's been gradual. But what happened in the 20th century, it suddenly has gone up, okay? Because there has been a trajectory of going up. Suddenly there is a growth that's happened, okay, where people thought they are going to end up here, but what has happened is they have moved up and ended up in a different place. There has been an exponential growth in entrepreneurship, in innovation. Now, why did this happen? Look at that, technology, all the technology is happening very, very fast. Okay, this is the history of disruption. Suddenly, there is so many changes that are happening as far as technology is concerned. Some of the reasons why the technology is growing fast are informed by 2 laws. One is called the Moore's Law, which very much says that the computing power doubles 18 months as the price is halved. So, oleh kerana the technology power doubles and the price is halved, more and more technology can come. There's more and more demand. So one of the reasons that technology is going up very, very rapidly. The other one is called the X theory of exponential growth by Kurzweil. And he says that, there's every society will double its innovation compared to the previous society. So he will look at this, he believes that the 20th century's worth of progress happened between 2000 and 2014. So another 20th century's worth of progress can happen by 2021. So he says that the 20th century's worth of progress will happen multiple times in the same year, sometimes even less than a month. So in 21st century, you will achieve 1,000 times progress that happened in the year 20th. So the world is becoming a very, very rapidly uncertain place, yeah? So we are moving fast. Nobody knows where we are going. That's what the World Economic Forum is saying, that the world is moving at a rapid pace. So most of you here who are wanting to become entrepreneurs, one of the things that you need to know is that nothing is predictable. Everything moves at a rapid pace. So if you look at this, there is the end of forecasting. That means you can forecast to a bit, but you can't forecast a lot. Everything is like going very, very fast. So if you look at the retrenchments globally, there's been massive retrenchments that's happening, and a lot of people are being laid off. This doesn't mean just for people who are in the pandemic, but it's also generally that because of the rapid changes that are happening, there's a lot of retrenchments globally. And if we look at this, the two key factors causing retrenchments, one is, physical manual labor has gone down, basic cognitive skills has gone down, higher cognitive skills has gone up, social and emotional skills have gone up. So essentially what we are saying is that more and more demand for young people to become more human as technology takes over. Okay, so that's what it's becoming. So what does Kasparov say? Anything we can do and we know how to do it, machines will do it better. So if we can codify it and pass it to the computers, they will do it better. So most of the jobs that can be codified can be coded. You can put it in an algorithm, will basically be taken over. So what do we need to do now? When technology is taking over everything. So youth. This is an Economist report a few years ago. 1.8 billion people living in this world between the ages of 15 to 30. 85% of them are living in developing countries like our countries. And 60% of them will enter job markets where the jobs doesn't exist anymore. 40% only will have the jobs that they exist. 60% will join organized where their jobs doesn't exist. So which means you've got to become a job creator and not necessarily someone who can go and work somewhere. So we need to have more people who are innovative. So what are the skills of the future and what should we teach our young people? So this is what we think. So this is what Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and also Muhammad Yunus says, right? All humans are entrepreneurs, not because they should start companies, but because the will to create is encoded in the human DNA. So essentially, everyone is entrepreneurial. And the second thing he says is that, when we are in the caves, we were all self-employed. So this is the same thing we discovered just now. So being entrepreneurial is a human nature. So entrepreneurship today has changed. It's about embracing uncertainty. Okay, it is about saying, okay, I cannot create the future. I do not know how to predict the future. The future is constantly changing. What do I need to do to create the future? What do I need to do? Should I, as a young person in a university or young person coming out, how do I survive in this world? So today's entrepreneurship is all about embracing uncertainty. Whatever you do is not confirmed because things will keep on changing, right? So this is what the thinkers say. Focus on the worldview. The future is open-ended and shapeable through human action. So human beings today can shape the future. Basically, you cannot predict the future, you shape the future. Entrepreneurship is about uncertainty. So by being entrepreneurial, you learn how to embrace uncertainty. So uncertainty is at the core of entrepreneurship. From the beginning, it is at the core. So the landscape of entrepreneurship has changed. I'll go through very quickly. Harvard was the first one who gave you the MBA program. And entrepreneurship is a pursuit of opportunity beyond resources currently controlled. And Babson has got its own definition. And all these other lecturers or all these other academics have got various different kind of definition of entrepreneurship. So if we fast forward to mid-20th century, the startup world has grown. The past 50 years, more and more people are becoming entrepreneurial, starting startups. A lot of around the world, you see a lot of them are starting startups, and they find that the curriculum, the MBA curriculum for running large companies, does not work for startups. So if you start a company, a startup, all the MBA subjects that you learn is not going to work for startups. Startups are a different kind of entities. So why has it grown? Why has the startup scene grown so much? Because there's low barriers to entry. So dulu, when you want to start a company, you have to bring a lot of money and start a company. But today it's not like that. It is, you can start a company almost by the size of your credit card. So you can start that. So what does being entrepreneurial or being venturer means? So the journey of 1,000 miles begin with a single step. So being adventuresome means Saraswati is the one who wrote this, she wrote this thing called the being entrepreneurial. What makes entrepreneurs entrepreneurial, right? So she says there is two ways of becoming entrepreneurial. One is, she always gives a cooking example. The example is if you want to cook a particular dish, you go to the fridge, you look at it, and you don't have that particular recipe, you go and you go and buy and say, okay, I want to make nasi goreng or whatever, and you buy all the ingredients and cook it. The other way is to say, what do I have in the fridge, and I make do with what I have. So what she says is that a really entrepreneurial person thinks like a chef, not like a cook. You know what a difference between a cook and a chef is? A cook follows a recipe. They take a recipe and say, this is the recipe, I just start to cook like this. But a chef is an innovator. A chef is someone who invents recipes. Okay, so they do trial and error and make many things happen, and they test out in the market. So what has all this got to do with being an entrepreneur? What does all this got to do with starting a venture? You all would have studied about business model, canvas, and all those things. Okay, Dash, I want to start a venture. Give me, this is what my idea is. This is what it is. But this is the mindset of an entrepreneur. The mindset of an entrepreneur is someone who thinks like a chef, not like a cook. A cook does not take much risk. He's afraid to get it wrong, wants to follow a rule book, measure every ingredient and put. But in an uncertain world, a chef cannot do that. A chef will say, okay, I want to test out. I want to cook something. I want to test this out. Okay, that's what it is. So being entrepreneurial, just now we looked at the 5 skills. These are the 5 skills that Saraswati says, how are you able to learn science? Today, all of you are learning science in school. If 500 years ago, when scientists said that, you can't learn science, only scientists can learn science, you will not have what we call the scientific method. So the same way entrepreneurial thinking has got a method. So Saraswati says that there are 5 ways entrepreneurs start with who they are, what they know, and who they know. And then they don't put all the money in place to start a company. They start with what they can afford to lose. And then they bring a lot of partners in the picture that is called co-creation with partners. And then they also work with how can if there is something that they didn't expect to happens, how they can change and work with uncertainties. And the worldview is, I cannot predict the future, and how I can create the future by acting. So these are the traits that Saraswati says really entrepreneurs work on, because she has studied the real entrepreneurs and how they think. They don't have business plans to start with. They work with who they are, what they know, and what they can afford to lose. So that's what it is. So she says that the real entrepreneurs take small steps, learn from these small steps, build that learning into what they do next, and then they act again. I can play the video, but never mind. We'll just carry on, and then we'll talk more. So a lot of people think success looks like this, but actually success looks like very much like this. So if you think that you want to start a venture and this is what you want to go, this is the first myth you've got to get going. Some of the myths of entrepreneurs: people think that an entrepreneur is a mad genius, which is not true. These are the upper young, we don't believe entrepreneurs are, which is not true, right? An entrepreneur is not mad genius. He or she is not born, okay? He or she is not born, and not necessarily they are, scholars. They are also not mercurial. That means they do not have these mood swings, and they are also not, what you call that, loud. They don't have the Midas touch that everything they touch turn into gold, and they are not gamblers. So these are things that which entrepreneurs are not, okay? Then there is the story of the entrepreneur suddenly having an idea. This idea while he or she was showering or going for a walk, and then the light bulb moment, go and discover, no, it's not something they did not discover, write a business plan, raise money, hire a team, build a product, orchestrate a launch, and then achieve growth, and then sells the venture and become successful. All these are stories that you hear in newspapers, which is not true. Okay, the real entrepreneurial story is not like that. Okay, those are things that we learn, and we know. This is all. When you read this kind of story, you always think, "Oh, I'm not successful. I am a failed entrepreneur." So don't believe this story. Okay. So the common entrepreneur does not have, the first idea is not glamorous. Idea to biasa je. Okay, the idea is very little relation to the subsequent what emerges. So most ideas are very basic. Okay, how do I look at Uber, look at Grab. Okay, Grab basically, got the idea also from Uber. So if you look at Uber, what the idea is, basically, it is about how can I share my car with somebody else. If somebody have wanted to, if this idea was somewhere in other places, it's very difficult to go. But then in US, they started it, and then it just jalan. And look at Airbnb, how can you, it's a crazy idea to get someone to share in your house, your couch, but it is gone. So the first idea is never a glamorous idea. You need to go out, like I said earlier, test like a chef. Do you think it will work? Maybe I test with 5 people, maybe I test with 10 people. But most of the time, what we are taught is, oh, go and do a research, go and do major market survey, go and do a big plan. All that doesn't really work. If you look at the enough statistics, if you're in my entrepreneurship class, we show a lot of videos about that. Okay. So many people don't, what holds many people back from becoming entrepreneurs or becoming entrepreneurial is, I don't have an idea. What they mean by this, I don't have an idea, is basically, I don't have a blockbuster idea. And then I don't have the money, everybody wants to start with a big amount of money. It's not true. You start with very little. What can I afford to lose? And I'm afraid to fail, I'm really afraid to fail, and I don't know where to start. So this is what it is. So the process of venturing, a lot of the time we think it's a straight line. It's actually, the venturing begins like this. How do you start a company? It begins like this. There is a discovery phase and there is an execution phase. We do not start with discovery phase. We do not spend time with discovery phase. We always say, oh, I have this idea, cepat, I want to do it. I want to cepat, I want to do it. They do not spend time on the discovery phase. Okay, this discovery phase is the complexity, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of ambiguity. And then you approach clarity and focus, then you go here. So essentially, this is what I call inspiration phase, where you go through and say, who am I? What do I want to do? What do I want to create? And all that. Okay, and that's what we do. And so essentially what I'm saying to you is that there is this inspiration phase, and then there is this innovation phase, and then there is this building phase that you actually start building a venture. Okay. So all these things we have already done. How do you know a good idea? Okay, so how do you know whether there is a good idea? The good idea will not go away. It will be always with you, and you really, really care for the idea, and you can explain it. You know how to make it happen and to be fun. You can see yourself doing it for the next 5 years, and you can get other people excited about it. We'll talk more about venture building in a bit, yeah? So, but before you come up with an idea, that idea needs to solve a problem, because no one will pay you for solving a non-problem, like what Vinod Khoshla, who is a venture capitalist, says. Okay, so this is the thing. I just jumped the slides just now. So a lot of programs teaches venture building like this. You get an idea, you raise money, and then idea to acceleration happens this way. Actually, it doesn't. Venture building has 2 parts to it. This is a Steve Blank model. I'm going very fast, yeah? You can stop me later, we can talk about this. Steve Blank says a scalable startup is here before it becomes a company. Okay, so which I showed you just now, is a discovery phase and a delivery phase. we do not spend a lot of time in the discovery phase. We just say, okay, we have an idea, we want to quickly build on the idea. So that's the problem we always have. So when we start building on the idea, we find that, oh, this idea is, somebody has done it. And this idea, the problem statement is not clear. Or this idea needs to be tested. So it is, again, I'm showing this. So there is a way of building this, inspiration, innovation, and building and scale phase. So this is what the effectual logic, which I told you about earlier, where you think like a chef. At every phase you think and you build a venture, okay? So that's what it is. So there is a mindset, action set, and skill set in doing this, and we call that, this is how I design the programs for every phase. Discovery phase, there is design thinking, venture building, and effectuation works in all the other areas. So essentially, that's what it is about it. There is more to the world than Silicon Valley. I can show you a little bit about venture building. This is the kind of startups here. There are two kinds of ventures. One is the small businesses that a lot of people start, which is nothing wrong with that, or innovation-driven enterprises. Innovation-driven enterprises are the newer type of startups that people build. Where most of the, all the technology is driven by this. Like a small business is whether you start a small garage or whatever it is, but we are interested in innovations-driven startups, which are here. And innovation-driven startups, it takes a lot, there's a high growth, it takes a lot of time to build, but once you build, you get a lot of returns. Whereas this one, you continuously build, you get money, which is lifestyle, it pays for your lifestyle. And most of these innovation-driven startups are in this area where you're entering new market and new product, and we call it like a suicide quadrant. And so basically, that's what most of you will be building. And when you are building a startup that is in this quadrant, or the innovation startup, there's a lot of things that you need to do, which we teach in a program called venture building, where you identify and test your market. And like I said, think like a chef. And from identifying who the customer is, so there are 5 or 6 themes of doing who is your customer, what can you do for your customer, how does your customer acquire your product, how do you make money of your customer, and how do you build on the business model. Okay, so basically those are the things that we go through.